Good evening, everyone. We'll call the committee meeting for the Oxnard City Council Community Services, Public Safety, Housing, and Development Committee to order for February 28, 2023 at 6:45. And Madam Clerk, if we can have the roll call and posting of the agenda, please.
Member Zaragoza.
Here.
Member Madrigal.
Here.
Chair McDonald.
Here.
The agenda for this meeting was posted on the City Hall Bulletin Board on February 21st, 2023.
Thank you. And if you will join me in saluting the flag of our nation. Place your hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. That takes us to section B, public comments on items not on the agenda but under the purview of this committee. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone signed up to speak on section B?
Chair McDonald, we do not have any speakers virtually or in person for this item.
Okay, thank you. That will take us to item C, consent agenda. The minutes from the city clerk and the subject is approval of the minutes. Recommendation is that Community Services, Public Safety, Housing, and Development Committee approve the minutes of the February 14th, 2023 regular meeting as presented. And do we have any speakers on this item, Madam Clerk?
Chair McDonald, no, we do not have any speakers virtually or in person for this item.
Thank you. What's the pleasure of the committee?
Move recommended action. Second.
Madam Clerk, we have a first by Member Madrigal and a second by Mayor Zaragoza. Use your voting things, please.
Motion carries 3-0. Thank
you very much. Takes us to item D1, Fire Department. Subject is blanket purchase order number 323-00265. Increased request for all-star fire equipment. The recommendation is that the City Council authorize the mayor to execute an amendment to blanket purchase order number 323-00265 with all-star fire equipment to increase the purchase order by $200,000 for a total amount not to exceed $400,000 for the purchase of structural firefighting personnel protective equipment, also known as PPE, or turnouts and fire hose. And pursuant to Measure M, there was a pre-recorded presentation on the city's YouTube channel. And Chief Hamilton is here. If the committee members have any questions or comments for the chief. Mayor?
I just, I think it's something that's needed by the firefighters, because to help the firefighters from exposure to carcinogenic materials or cancerous materials. And also as I mentioned before, the materials that is needed by the firefighters. And my understanding, Chief, that it's only a sole provider for this item because they went for an RFP, and I think it was.
That's correct. Yeah. So the structural firefighting turnouts that we receive are manufactured by a company called Lion, and they have an agreement with All Star that only All Star is allowed to sell in this territory. Mm-hmm. So that's why we requested the increase for All Star, and then Lion Manufacturing is currently the only company that has a particulate barrier built in to the turnouts, which helps prevent the carcinogens getting to our firefighters' skin, which is one of the ways that
what's the definition of turnouts again?
So turnouts, it's the structural firefighting clothing that they wear, and so it's sort of the bulky the clothes that they wear, and so generally our firefighters will wear that when they respond on traffic collisions, and then when they respond into structure fires. So
and I'm seeing many times where, regardless of the weather, hot, cold, or whatever, they're still wearing that equipment, which is protective equipment, correct?
Absolutely, yeah, it does protect them from the elements very well, both heat and cold.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Member Madrigal?
No comment. Thank you.
Chief, thank you very much. I've always had great respect for firefighters. My idea of a good fire is one that's in the fireplace while the TV is on. And also getting up on a 100-foot platform and in the air, moving around. It's not my idea of a fun afternoon, as I'm terribly afraid of heights. So my hat's off to all of you and your troops and for the work you do. So what's the pleasure of the committee?
Excuse me, Chair McDonald?
I'm sorry.
No speaker.
Let me guess, no speakers.
That's correct. We don't have any speakers virtually or in person for this item.
Chair, if I may, please.
Yes.
We need to update the recommendation. The recommendation needs to be modified to say that the committee recommends that the city council authorize. So it appears to be drafted as if it was going before the council now. So we need to make this a recommendation versus an authorization.
Okay, then I will make a motion to approve as amended.
Second. I'm sorry.
We give it to him.
We're not going to fight.
No, I think,
It was a second by somebody. We'll give it to the mayor.
okay.
Please vote.
Motion carries 3-0.
Yeah, that takes us to item number 3, also with the fire department, which is a purchase order with Motorola for $277,438.89. I'm sorry, I'm always mystified when we're talking thousands and thousands of dollars. We got to put in 89 cents, but it is what it is.
89 or 69?
Yeah, for 25 radios. And the recommendation is that the Community Services, Public Safety, Housing, and Community Development Committee recommend the City Council authorize the mayor to sign a purchase order with Motorola Solutions in the amount of $277,438.89 for the purchase of 25 APX 8000 all-band portable radios with spare batteries and remote speaker microphones. And pursuant to Measure M, there was a pre-recorded presentation on the city's YouTube channel. And Chief Hamilton is still here. If there are any questions or comments by the committee?
Awesome.
No comment. I'm good.
Mayor?
Yeah, so understand since the 25 radios and spare batteries are needed, and my understanding that to be compatible with the county radios, is that correct? And also potentially with the police?
Absolutely. So these radios, they're known as multi-band radios, so they can actually pick up or receive signals from VHF frequencies, which is what they use up and down the state when we go on mutual aid responses, UHF, which is what LA County uses, and then the police department is looking at moving to an 800 megahertz system, and our radios are compatible with that system as well. So these radios will hold us in good stead for many years to come into the future because of that multi-band function.
And I think it's important because many times, well, almost all the time, the police and fire work together. In fact, I was coming down Ventura Road the other day, and here's the fire engines heading to the scene, and the cops are there too, and the ambulances and so forth. So I think those radios are extremely important.
Absolutely, without a doubt. And also these radios, they're personal issue radios. I mean, they're assigned to a particular individual. So if that person ever gets in trouble and they hit their panic button, essentially, or emergency trigger, as we call it, we know exactly who that person is. So
Where he's at,
yeah, so that we are looking at some add-on technologies that will actually also help us find somebody if they're in a burning building when they hit that E-trigger.
That's really important. Yeah, that's because I saw almost, in fact, I hope my wife doesn't listen to this, but she's always losing her purse. And we put one of those find the purse, and it works. So kind of almost the same thing as what you're talking about.
Yep, similar.
You might want to sleep with one eye
I'm the
open.
one I opened.
Okay. If there are no other questions, what would be the pleasure of the committee?
Chair McDonald?
I'm sorry. Let me guess. Are there any speakers virtually or
We
present?
do not have any speakers virtually or in person for this item.
Okay, I'll try and get it right once tonight. So. Thank you very much.
Move to approve.
Second.
Madam Clerk, we have a motion by Member Madrigal, second by the mayor. Please vote.
Motion carries 3-0.
Okay. Takes us to item number 3, Subject is authorization to submit a grant application to Federal Emergency Management Agency, also known as FEMA, Fire Prevention and Safety FP&S grant not to exceed $350,000 for the purchase and installation of smoke and carbon monoxide detectors. And the recommendation is that the Community Services, Public Safety, Housing, and Development Committee recommend the City Council adopt a resolution authorizing, one, the submission of a grant application to the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, Fire Prevention and Safety, FP&S, not to exceed $350,000 for the purchase and installation of smoke and carbon monoxide detectors with no matching fund requirements. Two, that the city manager or designee to execute the grant agreements if grant funds are awarded to the city. Three, the chief financial officer or designee to submit financial reports and grant claims, approve budget appropriations during fiscal year 2023, 2024 for the use of grant funds and perform all other required financial actions. And four, the fire chief or designee to submit non-financial reports. And before we get into the discussion on this, I would like to ask the committee, with the police department where they have grant requests that have no matching funds or obligations on behalf of the city, we've taken a stance where we just tell them, go straight to council with it.
Yes.
It's an extra step, and I'm curious if that would be acceptable to this committee for the same type of grant for fire.
Yes, since there's no matching funds, I potentially I think it should go directly to the city
So-
council. Is that it? Are we okay with that, then, Mr.?
Clarifying question, does it matter on the total grant amount, or is just as long as there's no matching funds?
As long as we're not obligated to pay any money or anything else, my feeling is it should go straight to council and be approved. This is just one extra step that slows down the process a little bit. So there's concurrence on the committee for that. So.
Yes.
I
Okay,
agree.
excellent. The chief is here to answer any questions the committee members might have.
I just want to share that I think this is a really, really good program, Chief, because a couple of years back, I actually worked with the firefighters where they were knocking on doors and placing, you'd be surprised how many people do not have smoke detectors. And they were actually knocking on doors and people let them in, and they were actually installing the carbon one and also the smoke detectors.
Yeah.
And we also went over, when I was over in the county, we went over to Nyland Acres, into a mobile home park. 75% of the people did not have any smoke detectors. And one smoke detector can save the life of a whole family, which I think is a really, really good program.
Mayor, thank you. Mayor, committee member, thank you. I totally agree. And after the recent tragedy we had on Christmas morning, I think there's been a really a renewed emphasis on the desperate need we have in the city to install more smoke detectors. The recent fires that we've been seeing in the city, I think 4 out of the last 5 fires that we've had have not had working smoke detectors. And so there's a definitive need in the city, and we want to do everything we can because that Christmas morning fire, we never want to repeat again if we can avoid it.
Yeah, just I'm bringing my wife again. We had one of my, the smoke detectors of carbon monoxide. My carbon monoxide went off. And we're upstairs, and I called the fire department. The fire department says, get out of the house immediately. And my wife says, do we have to? Do we have to go? So we went over to the garage, and he says, get out of the garage completely, all the way out to the street. So that kind of, he says, a couple of minutes, you don't know, you can't smell it, you can't do anything, but you can die from that. Fortunately, the detector something was wrong with the detector, but it went off, which I think is really, really good alarm, to make sure that you get out when the alarm goes off, especially the carbon one.
Absolutely. When we actually first started receiving these grant funds back in 2014, it was actually, you had to have 2 separate detectors, one for smoke and one for carbon monoxide, because of the different the amount of power that they would use. We had to have different batteries, and now thankfully they have a combination detector where you can have both smoke and carbon monoxide in a single detector with a battery that lasts 10 years. And so that at this point they're essentially disposable, but we do get 10 years of use out of them because trying to get people to change their batteries once a year just wasn't effective. So these detectors will give us some bang for the buck in the long term.
And your guys went in with the mask and the whole thing, they had a detector, and they went and looked at it, and they shared whether it was, I can't remember what it was, it said no harm or some harm, whatever it was, which is really great,
Yeah.
just for information, yeah. So again, now both eyes open when they go to sleep tonight.
Member Madrigal, any comments?
No, just everything that the mayor said, the importance of having smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors is crucial, especially in an emergency,
Yeah.
as we've seen over actually the last few months. So thank you. This is great.
Thank you.
So motion.
I think it's an excellent program. People don't realize that carbon monoxide, you can't see it, you can't smell it. You don't know it's there until your skin turns cherry red. And by the time that happens, it may or may not be too late, who knows? But, so I think this is an excellent. And I see all the briefing memos when fire responds, and about 80% of the time, there are no working smoke detectors or carbon monoxide detectors. And I just went through my house about 2 weeks ago and replaced 3 of them, both the combination units. And with the exception of my cooking once in a while setting something off, it's, I feel pretty protected. So I would move the recommended action.
Chair McDonough?
I had it written down to say any speakers, I still messed it up. I apologize.
We do not have any speakers virtually or in person for this item.
We need to, can we get like a red and green paddle? And if there's no speaker, she can hold up the red paddle. And if there's speakers, she can hold up the green side. So I'm just teasing. I'll try and figure this out. Okay.
You first, and Oscar?
I'll second.
Okay. I made the motion. Member Madrigal seconded. Please vote.
Motion carries 3-0.
Okay, thank you. Takes us to item number 4. We should just call this the Alex Hamilton Show tonight or something.
Yep. Sorry.
Again, from the fire department, subject is a resolution acknowledging receipt of a report made by the fire chief of the Oxnard Fire Department regarding the inspection of certain occupancies as required pursuant to section 13146.2 and 13146.3 of the California Health and Safety Code. And recommendation is that the Community Services, Public Safety, Housing, and Development Committee recommend that the City Council adopt a resolution acknowledging receipt of a report made by the Fire Chief of the Oxnard Fire Department regarding the inspection of certain occupancies as required pursuant to sections 13146.2 and 13146.3 of the California Health and Safety Code. And I'm presuming these are mandatory sections where the state law requires us to do this, correct?
That's correct. This is a law that we only recently became aware of, but it was in response to the ghost ship fire in Oakland in 2016 that killed, I believe, 35 or 36 individuals. And so we're actually required to come before council annually and outlining what we've accomplished in terms of our mandated inspections. So we were just made aware of this 6 or 8 months ago. So that's why we're now coming before council with this report. And we will now every year into the future.
Okay. Member Madrigal, any comments or questions?
No, thank you.
So that, yeah, as I mentioned, there was a Bill 1205, the ghost ship fire in Oakland, and now this is mandated, and also that was quite a presentation. I think, how long did it take? About an hour to do?
It took a little while. I think I'm going to do. I had a lot of distractions when I made that recording, so I think I'm going to do a new recording for the council meeting for.
But it was very informative,
Yeah.
But it was a long presentation, and I think you talked about upgrading the fire gear and also the grants and the prevention role of the fire department, fire prevention role, which is really quite a. It was an excellent presentation, by the way. So
Thank you.
I think it was good, And again, this as Mayor Pro Tem mentioned, this is a required fire prevention role for fire departments, which is really important.
Yeah. Good.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk? Surprised you didn't.
Chair McDonald, we have no speakers virtually or in person for this item.
Thank you very much. What's the pleasure of the committee?
Move
to-
approval.
Second.
Okay, Madam Clerk, we have a motion by the mayor, second by Member Madrigal. Please vote.
Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you. That takes us to item 5.
So that's all for the fire chief.
Yeah, you can go, Chief. And the subject under D5 is the role of public housing authorities in homelessness. And the recommendation is that the Community Services, Public Safety, Housing, and Development Committee direct staff to prepare and present to the Oxnard Housing Authority Board of Commissioners a comprehensive proposal for adoption of a homeless services program, including the continued solicitation of special purpose vouchers, future voucher project-based commitments, and adoption of a local preference in support of homeless individuals. And pursuant to Measure M, there was a pre-recorded presentation on the city's YouTube channel. And Madam Clerk, I show one speaker on my list. Is she available?
Chair McDonald, the pre-registered speaker is not available virtually or in person at this time.
Okay, and we have no other speakers lining up to speak?
That's correct.
Okay. With that, I'll open it to the committee for any discussion or questions of Mr. Ramirez, our housing director. Mayor?
Yeah, well, I think one of the important things too here is that we need to look at a comprehensive proposal for adopting for homeless services. Is that correct, which is, I think is extremely important. That's one of the items we have here.
Thank you, Emilio Ramirez, Housing Director. Yes, I should mention that this topic has been before the council, the full council, the Board of Commissioners, the Tenant Advisory Board, the committee, a variety of different times. The last of which was at the end of last year in October, wherein we have been seeking to adopt a program for homeless services and a preference of the use of vouchers and as well as project basing. At that time, Council Member Basua asked that we present this final level of statistics relative to the use of vouchers for homeless persons. And so that's what the bulk of this staff report is about. The mainstream vouchers, the emergency housing vouchers, how many have they been used? Are we using them? Are they sitting? Do we have a need for more? And as you can see in the staff report, we are in fact using all of those, what the staff report references as special purpose vouchers for the homeless population. And we continue to need to provide additional housing to that population.
So that's what it's called, the HCB.
The housing choice voucher is the formal name of a Section 8 voucher. And then it reports on a variety of different kinds of vouchers, also serving similar function as a Section 8 voucher, the emergency housing voucher, the mainstream voucher, the FUP. Those are vouchers that are connected to a specific form of population, chronically homeless, or a family that is not unified. So those vouchers, we in fact are using them, and they are not just sitting and being unused.
So as the Mayor Pro Tem mentioned here, that item number 2 that includes the 2022 annual plan for activities related to the project vouchers, is that what it's all about?
Yeah, well, the project-based vouchers is something a little bit different.
Oh, okay.
Project-based vouchers, project basing basically means that it is committed to a specific apartment complex. Okay, and the vouchers kind of go with the apartment complex or belong to the apartment complex, as opposed to a tenant-based voucher, which is, it goes with the tenant and they can take it wherever they would like to take it. The reason that project-based vouchers are used is in order to help in the development of that apartment complex. In Oxnard, for example, there is a very low vacancy rate, and it's very difficult for people to have a voucher to find a unit in which they could use it. So we use project-based vouchers in an effort to build more stock, more inventory, and therefore use the vouchers in a way that is needed by the population. I should mention additionally that the idea for, or the concept behind the preference for the homeless vouchers is already within the draft plan that was presented to committee a few meetings ago, and is going to be presented to the full Board of Commissioners and submitted to HUD, subject to your comment.
You said something important, and I've worked with your office, and Brenda's done a really good job. There was one individual or a young lady that had 3 children and went all over the place trying to use that voucher, and she couldn't do it because of the cost, or because of the landlord wouldn't fix, the items that were supposed to be fixed in order to meet the housing criteria for the voucher program. But so this is basically what you're looking at. To some
I
degree.
mean, it
To some degree.
definitely would help. The project basing of vouchers would help in that scenario. That experience that you are talking about is not rare. It happens all the time.
Happens all the
And,
time.
at the end of the day, the rent that the landlord was proposing to charge was approximately $500 a month too high.
Exactly.
And, that happens in communities where there's a high demand for rentals.
And Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, it was $500 more, and the young lady did not realize why the city couldn't pay this additional $500. But you have a template that you go by, right?
There's a regulation that
A database, yeah.
the
Comps.
The HUD defines the fair market rent. It establishes the payment standard. The payment standard is then, we are not allowed to pay more than what the prevailing rent would be based on the payment standard. So if the prevailing rent for a 3-bedroom unit is $2,000, but that landlord wants to charge $3,000, then
right.
we were not able to use that voucher in that unit.
So one of the good things, just for the public to understand, is that not only did your staff look at the template, number one, and also those comps of a similar type of home, and they wanted $500 or $600 more than what the comps dictated.
It's too expensive. I mean, that's, on the open market, landlords can get away with that because there's enough demand for that.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Montreal, any comments?
No, thank you. Just real quickly, I do appreciate, on the staff report, it was stated that the homeless preference would be applied to applicants and families who meet the McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act definition. So that, to me, kind of clarifies that, but they would still have to get a certification of a homelessness completed by a homeless service provider, I'm sorry.
Correct.
And how would someone go about that? Because I know under that definition, actually, a whole lot more families meet that criteria that have kids that attend our local schools.
Well, first of all, a counselor at a school, for example, a lot of the schools hire staff that serves the homeless population that is going to that school, and that counselor could provide the certification by all means. And for that matter, Jessica, who runs the homeless programs for the city, and the county programs that serve CPS or the Human Services Agency or Salvation Army or Mercy that runs the shop, any one of them could provide the certification that the person is homeless, and that would meet the requirements.
Okay, yeah, because I know under the act definition, technically, multifamily living in a household technically would qualify for homelessness. Am I not mistaken? After a certain number, obviously.
In the McKinney-Vento Act definition is by far, well, not by far, but it is the most, it offers the most comprehensive population that defines for homelessness. So a person that is, for example, couch surfing, that person would still qualify to meet the definition of homelessness, as opposed to a more stringent definition the HUD may use as chronically homeless. They have to be actively living out on the street. And so we chose to use the more the definition that allows the more population to qualify.
Okay, no, thank you.
Thanks, sir. What's the pleasure of the committee? Oh, and has we found Ms. Osigara yet?
Chair McDonald, the person who pre-registered did not sign on, so we do not have any speakers right now.
So need a motion to approve?
That would be nice.
Okay, let's do it. Motion to approve.
Second.
Madam Clerk, we have a motion by the mayor, second by members,
Other,
Madrigal, I'm sorry, senior moment. Please vote.
Motion carries 3-0.
Yeah, it takes us to item number 6. Subject is kitchen rehabilitation project at public housing sites, parentheses 31-7, close parentheses. Recommendation is that the Community Services, Public Safety, Housing and Development Committee recommend that the Board of Commissioners of the Housing Authority of the City of Oxnard approve and authorize execution of a firm fixed price agreement, number A as in Adam, -8519, in the amount of $757,000 or $757,900 with MDJ Management LLC to rehabilitate 84 kitchens at the 31-7 scattered public housing sites using funds appropriated from the 2020 Capital Fund Grant. And where's 31-7? Which facility is that?
31-7 refers to a collection of apartment complexes that are scattered throughout town. That's why they're called the scattered sites. So you can see on kind of the first paragraph of the background, it identifies those scattered sites.
Okay. Thank you. And then pursuant to Measure M, there was a pre-recorded presentation on the city's YouTube channel. Mayor Zarco, do you have any questions?
Yeah, Mr. Ramirez, I understand that those kitchens were installed back in 1970 or
Some are
so.
pretty old, yes.
Something like that. And we're going to be using 2020 funds? Is that because?
Yeah, so we use there is a grant, if you will, that HUD offers to housing authorities to ensure that their public housing stock is repaired and maintained and improved and et cetera. It's called the capital fund. And the capital fund is specifically for this type of repair. And so we're using that $757,000 from that capital fund to make.
So we can carry over funds from year to year, is that?
We can, in as much as the capital fund any one year may not be sufficient to cause for the improvements that may be needed. But we do have to produce a plan that we present to the Board of Commissioners, submit to HUD, and this is on that plan, and we have to plan for the next 5 years of that plan,
Okay.
of that grant.
So, and as the Mayor Pro Tem alluded, that we're going from Athea Court to Fremont to Hill Street to Concord. I didn't see the Colonia, anything in Colonia here?
Colonia is its own public housing site, and so it is
Oh, I
not part of what we call the scattered public housing site.
Oh, it's a different,
It's a different site.
okay.
We are working on it, and we are making other improvements at the Colonia and at Squires and various other public housing sites. But in this particular case, the scattered site is the public housing site that we're working on.
And Colonia is not part of that?
That's correct.
Okay.
Member Madrigal, any comments?
No, just thank you, and hopefully we get this, lock this in soon, so the price doesn't go up.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you for the report. I was actually doing quite well until you said something from 1970 was quite old. So I guess I'm an antique at this point.
I was born in 71, so
You were just a baby, huh?
I have to.
What's the pleasure of the committee?
Chair McDonald, excuse me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Almost.
Gosh darn it.
We have no speakers virtually or in person for this item.
Thank you very much. Okay, now what's the pleasure of the committee?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second it. So, Madam Clerk, we have a motion by Member Madrigal and a second by me. Please vote.
Thank you.
Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you very much. That takes us to items for future agendas. I would like to ask our staff if we could get a report from the fire department. We've talked over the years about lifeguard programs and, different scales or different levels of service. I'd like to see if we can bring some report regarding that to this committee for potential future action by council. Chief, did you want to make any comments, or?
Mayor Pro Tem, I will, we've been looking at previous proposals that have come before council, so certainly we'll put together some proposals for this committee to consider to take forward to council.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other requests for future agenda items from either of the members?
Nope.
No, we're good.
Thank you.
No, and you're both okay with the request for
Yes,
the
sir.
lifeguard
Yes,
program
sir.
to come back?
Yes, that's fine.
Yes.
Okay,
I think it's
excellent.
good, it's a good program.
Thank you very much. Well, we can't go into too much detail, but.
No, I
Yeah,
understand.
that works. No, thank you. Okay, with that, we'll go to item, do I have to ask about public speakers on items not on the agenda? Or
An adjournment?
a future, no? Okay. That takes us to item F, adjournment. We stand adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief.